Hello, hello. I am so excited. I'll tell you why. Because during those conferences, during those meetings that we have been doing for at least those few years, most of the time we see old men talking, older women talking. And nothing wrong with that. I remember God said to me many years ago, He said, you need the gray hair. We need everyone in the kingdom of God. Absolutely everyone. Everyone is as important and as needed in the kingdom of God, or in the freedom movement, if you will. But what we have been lacking for years is courageous young people standing up, rising up. It's so crucial and so important, and it scares the enemy to their death. When they see you, kids, rising up. I was watching this little one in the back. There you go, the one that has the cutest smile there. And she's running around, and she has the staff t-shirt on the back, and she takes the people to the green room, and she runs around and supports. You know, that's a joy. It's a wind. It's a refreshing when you see younger people jumping and helping and doing their part. And you know what happens? It makes us feel younger. When we hang around with younger people, the energy, the feel, the beauty of the young generation is so amazing that you again feel like a teenager. So if I start talking like a teenager, forgive me. That's the effect of hanging around with younger people. So we have amazing three heroes. They're heroes of today. They're Canadian heroes. They're the next generation leaders, because one day we're going to give the baton to them, and we're going to say, now you have to fight, you have to do it, and we will bless you, we will back you up, we will be there with you, but we need your energy. So let's welcome the three Canadian heroes, the next generation of leaders in our beloved Canada. So Nathaniel, Pawlowski, and Monty. So you did not come here to listen to an old guy from the last century. Can you believe it? My children look at me and says, Dad, you're old, you're from the last century. Well, it's true. So here are the Canadian heroes.
Woo!
Hey, thank you all for coming out today. So I actually had the pleasure of meeting with Billboard Chris last weekend. And that's a man who's probably had 15,000 conversations across the country in the last couple of years and into the States. And you learn a lot from him. He's very meek, he's very humble, and he is able to strike a conversation with anybody. And he's very successful at it. And he was mentioning on a panel I was on with him about how we need to just start talking as a country rather than bickering and posting on social media and complaining. So that's kind of what we're here to do today. We're totally open to questions as well, and we're just going to give a little bit of insight. And so I guess we'll do a bit of an introduction. I'll let Nathaniel go first here.
Yeah, so my name is Nathaniel. I'm 23. I recently graduated from university in criminal justice, and I'm looking to go into law school because my dad needs an in-house lawyer. And recently what I've been starting is kind of what Josh is doing with his movement, Save Canada. I started True Dominion Canada, which is kind of looking at echoing what the States has, which is young people getting involved in movements like Turning Point, PragerU, Daily Wire. So Canada doesn't have that. We lack that conservative Christian youth voice for truth in Canada, so that's what I'm looking at starting. And we're here to talk to you, kind of hopefully inspire you to get involved, because if you don't start getting involved, well then what's the point of all this anyway? Our country's lost then. How do you combat a lie? You speak the truth. So that's what we're here to talk about, and we're going to talk about a little bit of our stories, why we do what we do. Yeah, Josh is going to tell us why he's been arrested. Monty's going to tell us about his arrest and all the stories that we have. So, yeah. Yeah,
so for those of you that don't know, I'm Josh Alexander. I'm kind of running a organization called Save Canada with Monty here and a few others, and our goal is mainly to start to promote Christian values and traditional values inside a modern world filled with degeneracy. I was recently arrested at my Catholic high school after simply saying God made male and female, and as well as many would wish to think, you can't change your biology. Change your identity as you feel, but biology stays the same. And I thought that was a pretty simple statement. Evidently not. I was arrested, and then again the next day for simply giving the gospel on a sidewalk in Ottawa. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that gives an interesting background for a 17-year-old in Canada, and I've got some plans to start to encourage other students to stand up.
Amen.
Hi, my name is Monty Walker. I grew up with Josh. We started doing the walkouts in high school with the Freedom Convoy and against the mask mandates in our schools. And we started going around preaching the gospel, telling other youth that they can stand up and they can fight just like we did. And it's basically just about spreading the message, sharing the gospel. That's what we're meant to do, and we're gonna do everything we can to keep that message going. I was arrested in Ottawa on Parliament Hill for carrying a Canadian flag, which is an absolute disgrace. We were just up there protesting, and I don't know, they specifically said that the pole the flag was on was too long and too hard, but I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, we're trying to go out there and let the youth know what's up, wake them up to what's actually happening around them, because they're living in a system. It's a broken system. We grew up in that, and we've got to open their eyes, and you parents have to help us out. Help your kids see what's happening. So.
What were you charged with?
I was charged with trespassing on Parliament Hill. So
yeah, actually, let's get into some of the finer details of it. How about you tell us about your recent arrest, which I saw on Fox News?
Sure. So first of all, if you had a trans flag that day, you would have been given a medal. It's just the Canadian flag that's now banned. So I see a lot of gray hair here today, which is actually okay, because you can identify as anything you want nowadays. So if you identify as youth, that's fine. No, but it's good because we're here to talk to you as well, because you have to support. If the young people are rising up and you don't support them, well, then you're just stifling them. So we need your support as well. If we don't have all sectors of our generations, then we're gonna lose this fight. So we need you. So we're here to speak to you as well. As for my arrest, I was detained. I wasn't arrested technically, so I'm a little falling behind these younger guys. But I was so in the city of Calgary, they passed a law, much like the NDP is trying to do here in Ontario, which states that you're not allowed to protest against drag events or any LGBT events within 100 meters of that event. Even if you're on public property, outside of a public library, on public sidewalk, that's charter protected. You're not allowed to do that in the city of Calgary because this rogue mayor who has vested interests with the LGBT passed this illegal, unconstitutional bylaw. So I decided, well, I'm not gonna go protest against this event, I'm gonna go preach. So I'm doubly protected by the charter because I'm practicing my freedom of assembly, expression, and religion. So I went to do that with my friend, and we just read the Bible, preached, and for that we were taken aside, detained by the police, and they charged us for protesting against a drag event within 100 meters. They charged my friend, gave him a court summons right there and then, and because we made a fuss about it, we got in the police's face with the cameras, and we called them out. They said, we're not going to charge you right now because we're not going to partake in your propaganda video that we were doing. I said, well, you already did, but thanks. And they're going to come to my home later. to deliver these charges, but they haven't come yet. So either the detectives are really slow, or they realize they live under the same address still as my dad, and they don't want another viral video to go out, Nazi Gestapo. So they haven't come yet with these charges, but they promised me, so I'm waiting, can't wait. And I did this actually in response because another pastor, Derek Reimer, was arrested for going inside of a library and making a ruckus, a fuss about this grooming that's going on in these facilities, in these publicly funded facilities. I don't know if you know this, but in Canada, each drag event gets $130,000 of taxpayer money per event, per library. I don't know if you know that, but you're paying for this.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it didn't go through any democratic function or anything like that, but you're paying for this. So we had a problem with that, and Pastor Derek went inside, made a ruckus, was arrested. Then he was arrested 2 more times for breaking his release order, his bail conditions, because he went back to these events. And actually yesterday he was released, so thank God. But anyone who stands up against this, it seems, is being completely hammered by the full force of the law. I mean, he's 16, he's 17, and the police don't care. They're still going after us. But it's a little different, I think, because of our age. It gets more fire. I think, that's why Fox News picked you up, and they're very invested. Americans are very invested in this because it's a different story. Finally, the youth have had enough of this garbage being shoved down our throats every day in every facet of society. Big tech, media, government, laws, Hollywood, everything is shoving this down our throats. And I think finally we've been deprived so much that we have enough of this, and we're finally starting to stand up. So yeah.
Yeah, so how about, one thing I wanted to ask you, your dad has been fairly well known. How much of a role did that play in your stance? Because obviously, I mean, you know the consequences of your stance. It's obviously a shocker when the world sees it. I mean, I was surprised when I saw it too, but at the same time, I know the feeling when you're about to do something like that. There's going to be consequences. So how much of a role did it play knowing you have a father like that behind you?
Massive role. I mean, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing this. There's not a chance. And it's actually interesting you said that because my dad told me to talk about this. I'm not proud, but before COVID, I was sort of lost. I was worried about myself, high school things, just caring about myself. I had all these values instilled in me, but high school, peers, bad friend groups, and you kind of go down this path of, just caring about yourself, self-motivations. And I didn't really care about this. I was completely aware of everything that was going on in the world, but I didn't want to get involved because why would I want to get involved? I've witnessed, before COVID, he was arrested 10 times for just feeding the poor, reading the Bible, doing his job as a pastor. He was the first person in Canadian history to be arrested for publicly reading the Bible in a public park without amplification or anything, just reading the Bible. So I was 6 years old at the time, and watching 10 arrests, hundreds of court cases, and all this stuff. I was like, why on earth would I want to be part of this? Why would I do that? And then COVID happened, and that just sort of drew a line in the sand. You're either going to go along with this agenda, or you're going to stand on the side of truth. It was kind of like 1930s Germany. It's like the line's been drawn, you pick a side. And if you pick the wrong side, that's okay, because you can come back in humbleness and repentance, and you can come back to the side of truth. But that was like a wake-up point for me, where I had to make a distinct decision that I'm going to stand for what's right, and I have to push back against this, because if I don't, they're going to crush us. They're going to completely destroy us. And then my dad was arrested for giving a sermon to the truckers, and he spent 50 days in solitary confinement, but at the time we didn't know how long he was going to be in jail. There were truckers that are still in jail a year and a half later, so that could have been him. I didn't know at the time what was going to happen. So my family, we were unaware if they're going to prolong this a year, how long this is going to happen. So it was either I get involved, and they tried to murder him in prison. So like this was real. It was either I completely dive into this wholeheartedly and fight for his life, or they can kill him. So what I did is And this is actually a message to all of you. Do what you can in your own community with the resources you have. So what I did was, he was in jail, so I organized everyone who was willing, the church, family, anyone who was available, and we would go every single day outside of the prison and we would protest. And we would expose with massive microphone speakers, and we would expose exactly what was happening inside the prison. So every single abuse of power that would happen that day, I would get on a microphone and I would say it to their faces, to the police, to the jailers, to the facility, to the media. I was doing interviews every single day. Alex Jones, Fox News, like every day I was doing media to get this story out there, because you have to expose. They're afraid of being exposed. If you expose them, it gives you protection. So that's what I was doing. Every single day I'd say, you know, they're threatening to kill him, they're not giving him a Bible, they're depriving him of water, they're stripping him naked just for no reason, they're ransacking his room, flipping the tables and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And every day I would do that. And I believe that was one of the reasons why he was actually being safe. Of course, God was protecting him in there, but the involvement was very important. And that's what I want to encourage everyone. Get involved in however you can get involved. And yeah, there's risks. You can be censored, you can be deplatformed, villainized, but they'll do that anyways. So you might as well just go full on. If you have something to lose, lose it. I hope you lose it. If you have something to lose it, because what I mean by that is, if you have a job and you're afraid of losing that job, well, maybe that job is blocking you from being your full potential, from going that extra mile. So I know this is going to rub you the wrong way, but I hope you lose it, because it's stopping you from doing something that you know is right. You have to speak up. You know, my education was on the line when COVID was going on. They said, I have to take this vaccine or I'm going to lose my education. I said, well, okay, I'll lose it. I don't care. So I said, I'm full on in this. I'm going to protest this. This is wrong. I'm going to stop my education if I have to. So that's what I did. And I made such a fuss about it that the institution threatened to throw me out, and I was fine with that. Fine, I'm going to stand by my convictions, but I'm not going to bend to your will. And eventually I ended up winning. I threatened them. I said, I'm going to sue you, and you have to make it always personal. Make it personal. They said, well, we welcome all legal action against the university if you're opposed to this vaccine mandate. I said, no, you don't understand. I'm going to sue you personally, because you're the one doing this to me, not the institution. You are the one that's discriminating against my religious beliefs, my convictions. And that freaked them out. So they gave me a religious exemption the next day. Amen. Right? So you have to say no. You have to be very firm in your beliefs.
Yeah, I think you were saying that some of us sat back for a while and just didn't want to get involved. And I was guilty of that too, for extent. I mean, I grew up, well, I was homeschooled till grade 7, but then I joined partway through grade 7. And I mean, there was that issue. I knew of a male that was using this female's spaces, and I didn't do anything about it, which is probably something I should have done. I don't know if I would have had the same network or support in grade 7, but it's something I was guilty of. And then when the masks came around and all that, I did eventually stand up, but it took a little bit of time. I mean, I had a job and I didn't want to lose it. It was my first real job. And I mean, it was a lot of money to me when I was that age. So there are consequences, but I ended up losing it. And it gives you freedom. Anything that people are afraid of losing is just a shackle. And we need to just decide who we're going to serve, whether it's our employer or God. So I'm sure, I mean, at one point or another, all of us have kind of held off and doubted and feared, and I'm sure Monty can speak to that too, and I'll hand the mic to him in a sec. But I mean, there's always going to be doubt, there's always going to be fear, but at the end of the day, God has your back, and you got to pick what you're going to stand for, because the corruption in our world right now and the outright attack on God's natural order is disgraceful, and we got to do something about it.
Well, yeah, like they were saying, you're gonna have to lose things. And the thing is, like, they're so willing to suspend us or expel us, kick us out. Like, were you going to college or university? Like, you're paying for that, and they're willing to kick you out. So it just goes to show how much your education's worth. Like, that they're just going to kick you out for protesting and using your rights that you have as a Canadian, as a person created by God. And I think it's that realization that made me realize I have to go up there and I have to go fight. I have to join Josh and help him on his journey. And it reminds me, verse from the Bible, Isaiah 6:8, I believe it is. And then I heard the voice of the Lord. He said, "Who shall I send?" And I said, "Here I am, send me." So it's everyone's got to realize that they've got to stand up and join together.
So I want to ask you both, because I think one of the biggest fears for young people is getting canceled, villainized, ostracized by your local community and society at large. So what was it like being in high school and having these views that are completely counter culture, counter narrative? What was it like to feel that sort of, that cancel culture?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that'll say, I lost a lot of my friends when I did this, and you have to ask yourself, were they really friends? I had a lot of classmates and stuff that I would hang out with at school, and I mean, sure, I didn't hang out with them anymore, but I'm not crying. I didn't lose anything that I regret. So if somebody's not going to support you because you wish to stand for your beliefs, and well, you're standing for everybody else around you when you do it too. They may not recognize it, but you are. And I have no regrets in what I did. Of course, I faced backlash. There's so many rumors about me. Apparently, the reason I got arrested is because I beat some transgender kid to a pulp, but in the middle of my class. But like, there's rumors, you won't be able to stop them. Just don't let it affect you. I mean, we need to grow a thick skin. We're going to face a lot more than rumors and backstabbing. So we got to toughen up and just face the real battles.
Yeah, like, let them come at you. What's the worst that they can really do to you, right? You know, God's got your back, and no one can hurt you if you have God in your corner. What's saying there? Got a question over there. Question?
Just a question, maybe Josh, you can explain to us, since we're not in school, what kind of message is going around that you got in trouble for, disagreeing with? Could you explain that to us who are not a part of schools right now?
Yeah, sure. I guess the first controversy would have been all the COVID madness. Myself and Monty spoke out against it. That wasn't a popular thing to do at the time. There was a lot of, if you don't put on the mask, grandma's gonna die and all that stuff, and just fear-mongering. But, I mean, we took our stand. Cops were called to the school. We were suspended left, right, and center, given detentions. And, I mean, so that was kind of the first hysteria we faced. And then we decided to, I decided to go to the Catholic board. And it was more so there after the mandates were removed and stuff. I looked closer at what was going on and what the actual curriculum was and what was literally plastered on the walls. And it was just a complete agenda of, gender fluid agenda and all this stuff, telling kids. Well, I had teachers telling me that male breastfeeding is okay and natural. No joke. And I also, men can menstruate. I got I got told there were 73 plus genders. There was no longer 72. They were up above that. And you get like basically any ridiculous idea you could think up, you'll hear it from your teacher there. And it's often influenced by the students' commentary. You'll have furries and whatnot, kids who actually wear tails and have cat ears, and sometimes bark or hiss or whatnot. But yeah, there you'll get, so in answer of your question, anything you can imagine, a teacher will be saying it.
Would they be younger teachers just out of university, or would they be older teachers?
Older teachers too. My youngest teacher was my best teacher. I don't know why. I mean, I've also had a couple former Greenpeace activists as teachers, so that would give a little bit of background to where they're coming from. But no, I don't. The education system in general is just very woke. Usually, if you look at a principal or something, anybody in any esteemed place has had to make a lot of compromises to get there, and it's all just woke pandering for petty cash.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I used to teach in a Catholic school. I taught for the Toronto Catholic District School Board, and I taught in one girls' school for 33 years. And I retired 9 years ago. There was none of this. It was like, so when I'm hearing you speak, it's like a different world. It sounds so unbelievable, and yet it's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I would even say, now I kind of have a biased view on it because I was in the public board and then I switched to Catholic. But even within that 1 year, I don't know how much of it was because of the switch of boards or just because of how much the agenda picked up. But there was a radical difference between my grade 10 year and my grade 11. And they're speeding up. Even like I've watched it progress just this year. Now it's obviously a counterattack to what I've been doing, but yeah, I mean there's signs. I got arrested, and like, if not, I think it was the same day, maybe a few days later, signs went up around the school saying "Don't be trash," and trash was an acronym for transphobic, racist. I don't even know, went down the line. So they arrested me and then passed through the school and "Don't be trash." So yeah, that also goes to show what you were just talking about, the cancel culture and all that. It honestly, it's a joke. All this controversy and the consequences become a compliment, in my opinion.
Do you have a bigger group of young people supporting you now and are encouraging you guys? Or?
Yeah, so that's actually a good way to lead into our kind of next and I think final topic. We'll open up questions after that, I assume. But I wanted to ask these guys, what do you see? I mean, we're in different provinces, so what do you see amongst young people? Do you think we're at a turning point, and what is the way forward?
Well, we're at like a new bottom low. I've never seen or heard of anything like this throughout history where everything goes. I mean, you're given as a young person everything on a silver platter. Drugs, sex, money, everything's at your disposal. And the level of depravity is insane. I mean, we're glorifying mental illness to a point where it's being actually shoved in our faces and told we have to affirm it. Normally there'd be treatments and you help these people, but no, you have to accept it, affirm it, and actually become them. So I've never seen anything like this. I've never heard about anything like this in history except 1930s Germany with Hitler Youth, where you're indoctrinated and told to think a certain way for a bigger agenda that the government is planning. In my school, by the way, in university, I'm taught socialism, communism is acceptable, gender bending acceptable. I was taking a law class, a constitutional law class, and yet I had to take diversity and inclusion training where you're taught all this stuff, you have to accept it, no matter what. If you don't, you're a bigot, you're a hater. That's what's being taught in universities, and I had to pay for this, which is very insulting and hurtful to everything that I stand for. But I swallowed it. I didn't take the midterm. Half of it I left completely empty because questions asked me like, what does a bisexual believe? I was like, why? This is law. I'm supposed to be learning the law, and yet they're teaching me this garbage. So we're at a very low point. But I think young people are finally starting to have enough of this, and I saw that with your high school, where there was a walkout, and I've never seen so many young students, like, they were angry about this. They were mad about it. They wanted enough of this. So I think we're at a turning point. We are. And it can only get better. I don't see how this can get worse. I mean, the level of depravity is, it's reached its peak. It can't get worse. So I hope people have had enough of this to a point where they actually start standing up and they start speaking, because it's not enough to be a good person anymore. You have to be a strong person. You have to be a good person. You have to be strong enough to speak out about it and actually, in the face of the lie, speak the truth. And I think we're at that point.
Yeah, I'll comment on that, and then I'll give it off to Monty, and then we'll open the floor to questions. But basically, what I see is kind of we were on a panel together yesterday as well, and you had mentioned that we have seen everything the world has to offer. Our generation has it all served to us on a silver platter: pornography, video games, vices, social media, all of it. It's a distraction, and it's the corruption of the mind. And once you, like, I mean, it's kind of like going to a restaurant. You can eat, it sounds all good, you eat it, and you kind of lose your appetite after you've eaten it. It doesn't sound as good as much anymore. We've had it all served to us. We know what it's about, and I don't think there's anywhere our generation can go but up. I mean, we're at an all-time low, and we've been under attack for a very long time. The tyrannical powers recognize that if they separate us from our parents, they separate us from our families, they separate us from God, they separate us from the Bible, the truth, they will control us and they will break us. And we can't allow that to happen, so we need to continue to speak out, and that's why I'm so passionate about advocating for the truth. And like you said, we went down to the York Mills Collegiate Institute, and we had a couple hundred students come out, and our Bibles cleared out in seconds. And this was while there was a drag queen story time or a drag queen presentation. It wasn't even a story time happening inside the school. And so we're starting to make some moves and hopefully get more students on board and wake up.
Well, yeah, we've started to see a lot more youth come out and support us just recently, because it's getting more and more extreme in the schools and the libraries and in summer camps, and they wanted to make that summer camp in Canada. And people come out and they try to counter-protest us, and they call us names, every single word that you can think of in the book, the most vile sentences you can possibly think of, that's what they're doing. And you just think to yourself, well, I'm not that. What does that even mean? Do you know what that means? And they don't have an answer for you because they don't know. They haven't got a clue. Actually, one of the members on our crew here, we were just down in Toronto protesting the Drag Queen Story Hour, and they're like calling us fascists and like Nazi white supremacists, and he's like, what is a fascist? You know, what is a fascist? Tell me what that means. Because they don't know. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about. They're just spouting the most hateful words that they can think of, all the while preaching love not hate, which is absolutely ridiculous. They have no idea what they're talking about, and it just goes to show that we're on the right side, because they can't even back up why they think what they think.
Yeah, what the left has done is they've weaponized name calling, and that's really the only tool they have, right? They have the government, they have the police on their side, but what they'll do is they'll try to ostracize you and separate you and just villainize you with the worst names imaginable. So I have a question for both of you. How do you deal with the name calling and this disgusting language that they use against you?
Well, you have to recognize it comes from a corrupted mind. I mean, they've been stuck in system, or as many like to call it, the Matrix. I mean, what do you expect when you live like that? They've been taught and trained to just insult and attack anybody who says anything contrary to what they believe. And I truly believe a lot of them do believe we're hateful. I don't know how, I don't understand how they get that when we're standing there teaching about the true epitome of love and talking about the cross and the story of the gospel. And I've seen, well, at some of our protests, we've seen some who were very harsh and hard-hearted at the start to open up to more conversation and be a little more interested. So we just got to speak the truth in love and continue doing that.
Yeah, they're always telling us to go back to school, but you know, like I've been called a white supremacist before, or a white nationalist, and it's like, I'm not even white. I don't understand where are you getting this from, right? But it just goes to show that they themselves, like their minds are corrupted, like Josh said, or they're mentally ill. And I feel bad for them. You know, I feel bad for people like that. But then again, it's also, I don't know. Some people, you can actually see the evil in them. Not all of them are, like, it's not excusable still what they do, because they say some seriously foul stuff, and like me and Josh were still minors, like 16, 17, and they just, you know, they come up with the most vile stuff that they can think of. You have a question there?
Just on that, just based on the talk that we just heard from Anne, so some of these inhibitors and things like that create this anger inside their bodies that, like, they're just so confused, and the hormone treatment and all that kind of stuff, like, depends who your crowd is or whatever. I agree that a lot of it must just be the social training and all that. But I found it very interesting that what she said was just like hormones going through puberty, like inhibiting that, et cetera, it just creates such an angry person.
Yeah. And a lot of people, like, I bet if you did a study, or if you look for studies, a lot of the people that go that take hormone replacement therapy probably aren't even over the age of 25, and like, you shouldn't be allowed to do that period until you're at least 18, right? I still don't think that should be a thing that's available, because we don't even know what the other long-term side effects that could be. And yeah, like, your brain's not even fully developed until the age of 25 usually, and even then there's a lot of people that were mentally ill from the start that are taking these hormones and doing these surgeries, and they don't even know how their body is supposed to function, because they're like 12 years old. They don't even know. And in some cases it's even younger than that. So it's disgusting.
Yeah, so there's 3 of us up here. I've got a couple more on my crew, but it's going to take a whole lot more than that to save Canada, and that's why we need students on board, we need parents on board, we need grandparents on board, and just community members in general. And so I guess we'll open it up to questions here, concerns. We want to hear from you guys, so go ahead.
Regarding what you just said, more people involved, are you guys expanding into more areas to build more local groups with younger people?
We're going to try to. I've been touring nonstop and speaking and showing up at different events, basically since my arrest, but I haven't actually even left the province yet. So I've got some plans to visit some other provinces now, and hopefully we'll be able to organize a little bit better. We kind of got thrown into this really quickly, but we have an open line of communication for students. I get as many contacts for students across the country as possible, and they share our concerns. Like, for instance, that York Mills protest, that was just a student that reached out to me 1 day before that happened. And I said, all right, and I got Monty to throw together a protest, and we showed up. We drove down overnight and showed up at the school. So we're always open to hear students' concerns, and we're here to act on them.
I have another question.
Yeah,
So it's regarding, because you're obviously not in school, right? You're doing a lot of traveling, and I don't know what your parents are dealing with like truancy, and is there any issue, backlash in your parents regarding allowing you to do this stuff?
Yeah, well, so they're not. I have no risk of being charged with truancy because I've been kicked out of my school. I'm not allowed to leave my school, but I'm also not allowed to attend class. So, I challenge them to charge me with truancy. I think that would be kind of comical, but my parents are also, they're both under investigation. They were teachers, so there's definitely been consequences to my public stance, but I don't think truancy is going to be an issue. Like, every student has a right to protest, right? They will try to, like, I've had conversations with principals from 2 different schools organizing protests. They're usually long, drawn-out conversations, and they try to intimidate you. Now, it's gotten to the point, like right near the end, they would try to ask me questions. I'd say, no, I'm organizing a protest. We have a right to do it. I'll tell you when. I'll tell you where. That's all you're getting. And that's all you have to do. They'll try to trick you into thinking that you aren't allowed to protest and you won't have transportation back and all this stuff. They've played every card on us. We just say, we're going to do it, be firm, know your rights, and you shouldn't have an issue.
Just to add on that, there, regards to consequences of our actions and that affecting our parents. Like, my parents don't work in the school board, but you know, like, we have people online always coming after my parents, insulting them, saying, how could you raise such a white supremacist Nazi? Or they always like to say foul stuff like that, spamming in the comments, and my parents aren't even like public on their political opinions. And yet people are still trying to come after them in every way possible, trying to dox us. Yeah, this goes to show who's the real hate group.
Yeah.
I've made some observations with the thing happening in the school board that I've also noticed, just like, because I just recently got out of the whole system as well. And I noticed where, if you look at the timeline of who got control of the schools, it's not really surprised why this is also, we're seeing it all over the place. Because if you look at, especially here in Ontario, if you know who the previous premiers and governments, we started with McGuinty back in, I guess, the 90s, late 90s. I'm trying to remember that, but then you get that transition into Kathleen Wynne, and then Doug Ford comes along saying he's going to actually scrap the stuff, and then he fails on that promise. And so, if you look at that timeline, literally from the time I was born, all the way to the point I get to graduate, so grades, I guess, from preschool all the way to grade 12 and graduate, you have one mindset, one government saying, this is what we're teaching in the schools. So it's not a surprise that it keeps getting ramped up. I also noticed, I went to a Catholic high school, public funded, but the interesting thing was, if any of the news cycles that was reported, all the crazy stuff happened first, at least in my area, in the public board, and then within a year or two trickled into the Catholic board. So it's really interesting where even a lot of parents weren't sending kids to the public board, but to the Catholic board, because it was just the area I was in, the high school was just better than the public one. But it was interesting to see, though, that, yeah, most of the crazy stuff that's happened first in the public and then quickly transitioned over to the Catholic board, with Catholic in quotes, because it's just all tied to that public funding. And they just really, really concerned, just want to keep that public funding. That's their biggest drawback. I just want to throw in one other thing. I'm also working right now as the campaigner Canada for Citizen Go. I did show you the petition. I did launch a petition for Josh Alexander. We've got 13,000 signatures so far signed to support you and what you're doing. But I also have a lot of other petitions I've launched right now as well against the transgenderism. There's actually right now I've got a petition going against a theater for young people, Parasol Theater for Young People in Vancouver, BC, which is going to be running this summer a drag queen summer camp for kids. And their main selling point is they're going to give a starter kit of drag queen makeup to these kids. It's bonkers. So if anyone who's interested and wants to get involved, just check out citizengo.org and just check out and see what I have up there. Because we're an international organization, so we do a lot of pro-life, pro-family, pro-liberty stuff. So if you want to get involved right now, check us out.
That's awesome. I'll just respond quickly to your previous statement. That's why you need parental control over education, because if you have public funded, you have government funding, well then everything that the government's pushing is going to be pushed on the kids. And that's a very dangerous thing. I believe that there has to be separation of powers from the government and the education system. So it has to be parental control over that.
Yeah, what you said about the drag summer camps, if I'm correct, that was, just remind me of the ages, that was like, what, ages
It's
up
ages
to 12?
7 to, no, as young as 7, all the way up to, I believe, 16, 18. I'll have to recheck, it's been a while since I watched that.
I don't think it's 18, I think it's a little bit lower than that,
but they're starting at age 7. Which
yeah,
is
it just
alarming.
goes like, and you get that that drag kit to like start, I don't know, being a woman even though you're a man, like, and that's even worse. It's a summer camp, because they, you know, like they're gonna be having these kids for a whole summer. That's a lot of damage. So they're gonna be getting some of these kids are gonna be going to school, and then going through that system, being taught all this, and then when they're finally out and go to summer, they're gonna be going to the summer camp and just getting like twice as much of the indoctrination.
That's right.
Do you guys have a website?
Yeah, our website is savecanada.army. It's under construction right now. You can go there, but it's very outdated. Your best bet to find us would be, well, we've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Telegram. So we're on most socials. You can find us, whether it's under my name or Save Canada's, or Captain Canada would be Monty's. But yeah, you can get all the updates on there. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Do you have any suggestions on how to inspire young people in our lives to become engaged?
Lead by example. So for example, what they did is they ignited a spark, and it actually went across Canada. I don't know if you're aware of that, but other schools and students are now picking up what they did, what we did in Calgary, and they're inspired to actually take action. Courage is contagious, and when you lead by example, other people won't be afraid to do it. So you have to lead by example. Show your young people how to get involved, how to fight. It can start very locally, very small. You don't have to go full on out battling the justice system and the government. Just start small, you know, speak little truths here and there in your local community, and then build that momentum when you have a support group, and just get out there and oppose this agenda.
Yeah, parental support is also incredibly important. I couldn't tell you how many students have told me when I'm organizing a protest or something, sorry, I wish I could come, but my parents will kill me. Like that, well, and because parents are worried about grades, they're often lied to by the principals and teachers about what's actually going on. I mean, with my situation, there were emails going out to parents talking about how they don't condone transphobic sentiments and all this, and it was simply because I was organizing a protest regarding males, biological males, using females' washrooms. I said females deserve privacy, and it's a violation of their safety and security, so we're going to do something about it. And apparently that was transphobic, but so the message that I put out versus the message that goes to the parents from the school is going to be very different, and parents just need to support their kids taking a stand and doing something, even though it may bring consequences to both the students and the parents. Go ahead.
Because there's a few of seniors here, do you have a suggestion as to how we can be involved with what you are doing to support you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I recognize a lot of people don't have social media, but it is a powerful tool on both ends of the spectrum. It's used against us a lot. There's a lot of propaganda out there, but at the same time, when we put content out there, it often reaches a lot of young people, and we get a lot of positive feedback on a topic that would usually be censored and condemned. But so online is important. I don't like to advocate for it, but nothing we do is cheap. We obviously can't have jobs, and it costs money to get from event to event, and just to pay for gas or even to eat, and so financial support is important. I mean, the legal fees certainly aren't aren't very feasible without some outside support. So there's quite a few ways to get involved. And just like I said, if there's young people in your life, encourage them and show up to events. People of all ages are welcome and important. Every person there matters, and we need a bigger presence at our events. And it's difficult because a lot of the counter protesters we get are unemployed or sometimes funded, and I mean they will often have more because they organize their events on weekdays, and then they bring out their Drake defenders, and they're all unemployed mentally ill people. So it's not going to be easy, but like when you can make it, it is important, and we know we have to be out there.
And prayer is super important. You know, they're facing charges. I could be facing up to a year in prison under this charge. You know, trespass. We need prayer, so that is most appreciated.
As for older people getting involved, I think that older people have maybe a stronger influence in their communities. So going to like your town halls or whatever, like municipal, even if it's just municipal, anywhere where you can get involved, because you have a lot more experience. You've seen all this. You probably grew up in a system that wasn't quite as broken, and you know what should be happening right now. And you can tell them what's going on, because a lot of these people that are in our municipal offices and even higher up than that, they don't even know what's going on. Like, so if you can go out there and just spread awareness of what's going on to your municipals, that'd be great. The question over there.
Oh, one second. I just want to respond to that because something came to mind. Pressure works. It really works, and politicians freak out when they're pressured. So what you can do, if you can't, you know, get involved maybe physically, what you can do is write emails, phone calls, go to their website, text, and just shower these politicians or these police chiefs, sheriffs, anyone who's involved in this persecution against Christians and anyone who's standing against this agenda. Shower them with opposition. Just tell them what they're doing is wrong, and when they're flooded with these influx of phone calls and emails and stuff, it freaks them out, and they actually start to make mistakes. They cave into that pressure. We did that campaign in Alberta, and the premier eventually had to resign within a month. So it works. Pressure works.
Sorry, just to add on to that one more time, there was an interesting story of when the community did pressure my school and it ended up working. The first walkout I organized in solidarity with the Freedom Convoy, I was told I was going to be suspended, and every student that walked out with me would be given a detention minute for each minute they protested with me. I went into the office and I told the school, that's not going to happen. Suspend me, do whatever you want to do to me. I'm the organizer. Each student has a right to protest. Do as you please. And they ended up cutting me a deal, and they said, okay, nobody will face any consequences except you. The only people that will face consequences is those who remove their masks while marching out of the building. And I said, and then they asked me to go out the back door. And I said, no, thank you. So I go up there, they asked me to make an announcement, informing the school what the deal was, and I said, so the school has asked you to remain inside, but if you're going to protest, you won't face any disciplinary action if you keep your mask on while exiting the building. And I said, I'm not telling you what to do. I said, but I'd ask you to follow me out right now. And I took my mask off and walked out the building. So anyways, I guess I just garnished 2 suspensions there. And the community came through. They contacted the school. They showed up. They brought us food at the walkout. They had parents coming in to talk to the principal, telling them they better not suspend me or there would be consequences. I wasn't there for all the conversations. Apparently some of them are quite heated, but nobody from that walkout faced any disciplinary actions, including myself. So like you said, pressure does work. Over there.
Yes, my wife and I have been heavily involved in the freedom movement, if you will. We have 3 children, young folk from 25 to 35. They know what we're doing. They're aware they have an awareness that there's some sort of problem, but they don't want to get involved in any way. Do you have any suggestions or ideas in terms of how to encourage them to come forward and help us?
Well, I mean, just showing somebody the solemn state of our youth and our nation in general ought to give them a little bit of a boost, and make them, give them a little bit more courage to stand up. Like we've been saying, there's going to be consequences to anything you do. And there's even going to be consequences for not standing up. It's just which ones you're willing to face. And I think that the price for not standing up will be greater just inside the self than taking a stand and facing the consequences and knowing you did the right thing.
And we have to stop expecting other people to stand up for us. If you don't do it, who's going to do it? It's up to you. It's not up to someone else. Don't put your faith in politicians or anyone else. You have to be the one to stand up, because if it's not you, no one's going to do it for you.
Alright, yeah, I'll answer your question.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to commend you, thanks. As young people, I just want to plant 2 seeds. As elders, I've been a coach, a father. First thing, don't become a target. Learn what Mr. and Mrs. is, what Nathaniel says. When I grew up, I never ever gave authority to the 1%. A bully, I didn't even know what the opposition was. So when you stick in truth, that leads by example. So Josh, don't become a target, be an example. That's much stronger. I coached for 5 years. I never gave attention to the lowest variable length. You follow me? Do what you're doing, but don't go into their field. Court a girl, call your parents Mr. and Mrs., do family days, watch how that attention comes to you. You follow me? So your game plan is be a nice male. If you like a girlfriend, have the dating parties, dating picnics. Let them see you have fun. Don't lean into them. You follow that seat? That helps you. Because as a kid, I had a mentor, top national coach. I never watched what someone else's game plan was. So as an adult, I became married with kids. So that seed, I want you to be very careful, because that 1% is leading you provoke. Do you follow me there?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. I'd say I believe that as young people, we need to get married, raise families, have kids, and start building the country back.
Follow your mentor, your dad's parents, right? When I share my stories about my grandfather, my grandmother, they're listening. I'm not going to lean into what they want me to be. And the other seed I'm going to give you is critical thinking. That's all you have to teach your friends. Don't say that's bad, that's good. Tell me what's good or bad. It's psychology. 1% is trying to convince 99% in anything you do. So, do you understand those seeds?
I think we're taught to think with emotion rather than logic. So I do think that needs to shift. We have to start thinking with our heads, not our emotions. Yeah. Because when you see them and the Antifa types and the left, they're just screaming out of emotion. They won't even hear what you have to say. You have to break their mentality. So that's the difficult thing to do. But I think we have to wrap up here. So thank you all for coming. And
yeah, thank you all for coming. I guess we've run over our time limit, but hopefully you gain something from that, and let's start to influence the youth and start to grow as a community, get involved, and eventually save Canada.
With God we win.
Well, let's thank our young heroes Monty, Nathaniel, Josh, the future leaders, and today's leaders in their own communities. So I'm looking forward to all of you in few years. I mean, the future looks bright. Okay, thank you so much for coming. Be blessed. There is a lunch in just a few minutes, and we'll continue in a bigger venue over there. Be blessed.